Hi guys, Dave here from Wolf in the Wild Survival. This is part 3 of how to build your bug out bag. If you have not seen part 1 or part 2, I suggest that you stop here, go back to the beginning, and check out those other 2 videos before you continue on with this one, just so that things make a little bit more sense and you're up to speed on everything that we've talked about before. If you've already seen those videos, stay tuned. We're going to get started. So the first C that I want to talk about of the other 5 C's of survivability is candling. Having a decent flashlight or headlamp is not necessarily vital to your survival, but it does definitely help in a lot of different situations. Now, first of all, obviously, you can move about after sundown and not risk injury as much. Also, performing certain tasks is a lot easier with a constant source of light as opposed to a flickering campfire or torch. In a defensive sort of measure, if you have an animal sort of encroaching onto your campsite, maybe it's going to get into your supplies, upset things, steal your food, possibly even cause you injury, maybe even infect you with, I don't know, something like rabies, chances are, if you hit that with a decent flashlight, it's going to go away. So it has some defensive capabilities as well, or at the very least, you get that light onto that animal, you know what it is and what you're dealing with, and you can react from there, as opposed to just hearing a noise from over there somewhere and not really knowing what you're dealing with. Very useful to have. There is a little bit of debate I have kind of noticed before, that some of the campers, hikers, bushcrafters, survivalists, whatever, some of them say a really good flashlight with a nice strong beam is the way to go. Others say, you know what, a headlamp is a better way to go because you can go hands-free. I say, why not both? They don't weigh much. They don't take up much space. A backup is always good. And a lot of survivalists have coined a term, 2 is 1 and 1 is none. So when you're talking about something small and lightweight and, you know, kind of whatever, definitely you want to go with one of each. I recommend something rechargeable. Carrying around a whole bunch of batteries is not necessarily going to do you all that good long term. Plus, it's more weight and space in your pack. Having a rechargeable flashlight and a rechargeable headlamp allows you to just take one of those little battery banks, plug the thing in, give it a quick recharge, and you're all good. Later on, you can recharge your battery banks with your solar panels or back at home, you know, kind of whatever. However it is you're going to do it, you know, you should probably think about maybe having a decent solar panel, 1 or 2 decent battery banks, and then rechargeable equipment. Don't carry batteries around with you. It's not really going to help you out in the long run. So the next C is compass. Now, I know I said in a previous video that if you don't really know how to use a compass, you probably shouldn't bother to put one in your pack. But I guess like that was sort of a half-truth statement. You should have at least some idea of what direction you're traveling. I mean, it helps. You know, in certain situations, you're less likely to get lost that way. And unless you know really how to use a compass really well, you probably don't want to spend a whole lot of money on one, but you should get one that is relatively accurate. Like, you know, don't rely on one of those tiny little button compasses or, you know, those cheap ones that you get at like dollar stores or whatever. Grab yourself something that is at least going to work for you. And while you are traveling in, you know, a bad situation, you're lost, you're kind of whatever, just sort of keep track of your direction of travel. Also, something that will help a compass be more useful than just being a compass is a map. I understand Dave Canterbury's line of thinking where he was saying compass because it had to go into a sea, and land navigation was kind of hard to, get that into a sea for his 10 Cs so that, you remember everything that you want to have in there. But what that C is saying is that you want to be able to navigate yourself out of trouble if you can. And a compass and a map of your area is definitely going to be a bonus to you, especially if you have some skill with that compass. Next up is cargo tape. Basically what we're talking about is Gorilla Tape, duct tape, 100-mile-an-hour tape. Something along that lines. It is super useful in so many different situations. First aid applications, fire starting applications, gear repair. The kinds of things where if you are trying to basically get this done and you're only using natural materials, it's going to be way, way more difficult. Now, in fire starting applications and first aid applications, chances are you're going to want to get that done as quickly as possible. You are not going to want to be improvising if you don't have to. It could potentially become a deadly situation that is easily prevented by carrying cargo tape. Now, I would... What do you call that stuff? There's this dude, he's got like a jug or a big tub of water, and he takes his tape, and there's like a hole in the tub, water coming out of it, and he slams it and it stops the leak. Flex tape. Honestly, is it going to work the way that they show it on that like infomercial? I don't really know, to be honest, but I do know this. If I had some flex tape in my pack, I would have been able to extract myself from a survival situation sooner and easier than what I eventually did after repairing my canoe with pine sap, pine pitch, and tree leaves. It would have just been so much easier to have flex tape. I tried to do it with Gorilla Tape. It worked only for a certain amount of time before it actually started to leak. So cargo tape is definitely a good way to go, but throw a little flex tape in there as well, even just a couple of feet of flex tape, just because it is super useful in certain bad situations as well. Moving right along, we've got canvas needle. Of all the various needles that you can get, the sail needle, or canvas needle, is probably your most durable, most useful one. If you only carry one, then that would be the one that you would want. Once again, it is an item that practically weighs nothing, can take up almost no room whatsoever, so you would probably be much better off carrying a couple of different needles. A couple of just regular sewing needles, as well as a leather needle, your sail needle, and even some of those needles that are sort of a half circle. If you, for one reason or another, absolutely have to get some stitches into somebody to close a wound, it's going to be a whole lot easier with one of those curved needles. So while you're thinking about your canvas needle, throw yourself together a small kit of whatever different needles, even if you just tape it on the back of your knife sheath. Another thing that many of us like to do is we like to take our sail needle, the biggest sail needle, biggest needle we have, and magnetize it. Stick it on a fairly powerful magnet for a while and let that thing get good and magnetized. This way here you can make yourself a makeshift compass if it comes to the point where you actually have to do that. Fairly useful. Last but not least, we have cotton bandana, or a cotton t-shirt, or a shamog, or something along that lines. We want to have some kind of cotton, cloth, something or other that will allow us to pre-filter our water, use in first aid applications if needs be, sanitary applications. You know, you find yourself a nice little stream of running water, you can clean yourself off a whole lot easier with some sort of a cloth than you could if you just, you know, strip down into your skivvies and lay down in the pond. So definitely something cotton and somewhat large, bandana size or bigger, basically. Now I say cotton t-shirt because I always like to have a change of clothes, and whenever possible I generally go with cotton. Mostly because of the 10C rule, but also because it's just a little bit more comfortable than most other fabrics for me. And, you know, I like comfort. What can I say? Alright guys, so that's it for part 3 of how to build your bug out bag. Once again, I hope that it was helpful, even somewhat enjoyable, and I hope to see you in part 4. Have a good one, guys.